Seventh stop on the BMW IBSF Bobsleigh and Skeleton World Cup Tour is Königssee, Bavaria, and perfect conditions on this Friday morning for the first action of the weekend, women's skeleton. And after a dramatic and demanding first heat, returnee Jane Channel from Canada off the second fastest start in the competition, lying in 7th place after the first heat. Cleaning up some mistakes from Heat 1 gave Channel a great run down through the Königssee, and she roared away at the line. A fantastic second heat to put it into the lead with 6 to go. She was still in the leader's box as we got to the top 5. Anna Fernstedt grew up on this track, slid here for Germany, claimed a podium finish for Germany a couple of years earlier, and now for the Czech Republic, taking the lead narrowly away in the closing metres from Jane Channel. With 4 sleds to go, our World Cup points leader Janine Flock was at the line. She's only had a couple of podiums here in her career, not one of her favourite tracks, but a good second heat was undone by a disappointing exit from the Königssee. She dropped behind Fernstedt. It looked like she would be out of the medals. In the top 3 after the first heat, Jacqueline Lerling, world champion on this track in 2017, one of her 2 wins and 3 silver medals. 3rd place after the first heat, she's never finished here, out of the top 2. Would that continue? Well, she had the lead with 2 sleds to go, but both had set new track records. Elena Nikitina of Russia set the fastest start and a new track record in Heat 1, but it all came apart in Heat 2. She all but crashed in the lower labyrinth and her speed evaporated. Tina Herman, the race leader, did exactly the same, only worse on her home track. She came down in 10th, her career 3rd worst result, as Jacqueline Lerling claimed an unlikely victory ahead of Anna Fernstedt, and Janine Flock and Jane Channel tied for the bronze medal. Janine Flock now leads a top 18 finish in Innsbruck, the final race to claim the Crystal Globe, but for Jacqueline Lerling, it's a first win of the season. After the craziness of the women's race, the men would have plenty to prove, and they did. Heading into the second and deciding heat, last year's winner Alexander Chechikov lying in 7th place, but just 1900ths off the fastest time of Heat 1. First job to dispose of teammate Nikita Chegabov, who'd been just 100th behind him in the first heat, and he did that comprehensively, a 1/3 of a second quicker. Well, Chechikov throwing his hat down for a medal, and he was still the leader as we got to the final 4 sliders, having disposed of Martin Stuckhaus and world champion Christopher Groother. Axel Jung tied for 3rd in his first World Cup, only his 2nd race of the season. Across the line, just 400s back, Chechikov leading, but still 3 to come. Marcus Wyatt of Great Britain, 3rd fastest in the first heat. He's already had 1 bronze medal this season. Could it be another? He had the lead at the Königssee, but below the Königssee is where all the trouble creeps in. And somehow the speed just ebbed away at the line. 600s back. Chechikov was in the medals. 2 to go, and it was Alexander Gassner. His first ever World Cup win came a week earlier in St. Moritz. He is starting well and sliding fantastically. And below the Königssee, he found speed that nobody else had seen, going from 600s ahead to 1300s at the line. With 1 sled to go, he led. The final sled had been the first on ice. Start number 1 for Sun Bin Young, the Olympic champion. Fastest start in both heats, and a track record in Heat 1 put him in a slender lead of just 100th of a second. He had 800s in hand in Echo, and at the line it had vanished for a second week. A jubilant Gassner victorious, this time with the last 2 Olympic champions behind him, Axel Jung in 4th and Martin Stuckhaus dropping to 11th. Gassner will finish 2nd in the World Cup rankings, as none of the leading group will be at the season finale in Innsbruck. Saturday morning, a low cloud base and light snow for the start of the bobsleigh weekend with the 2-man race. After the first of the 2 heats, Great Britain's Brad Hall and Greg Cackett lay in 6th position, more than half a second off the lead. The sled in front of them just 1/100th away. Christoph Hafer of Germany had put down a strong challenge in the second run. He'd been 200ths behind them, but by the line they had pulled out another 800ths to take the lead with 5 to go. And they were still in the leader's box after Oscar's Melbardis slipped behind them, leaving us with Justin Cripps, silver medalist on this track in the last 2 seasons. It's been 4 years since he's been off the podium, but it would not be a podium day for Cripps. He had enough to put Brad Hall behind him and take the lead with 3 to go, but only just. In the top 3, 700s ahead of Cripps after the first heat, Austria's Benny Meyer. Young Christian Huber behind him was on the silver medal winning sled in Winterberg 2 weeks earlier, but not on the 2-man that took bronze. So he was hoping for a big start, which they got, and clean drive, which they also got. Guaranteed another bronze medal for Benny Meyer and a first for Christian Huber. But the battle for gold was always going to be a 2-horse race. Local hero Johannes Lochner with Eric Franke behind him, 500ths off the lead in the first heat. They needed an epic drive to take a first win here in 5 years. Lochner found plenty ahead of Benny Meyer, but would it be enough for gold? Francesco Friedrich's slender lead after the first heat was extended. Chasing the all-time start record, they came up just 200 shy, but it was enough to accelerate the sled to unseen velocity down the track. Fastest all the way to the line to race away by 0.2 of a second. Friedrich's 5th consecutive win in Lochner's home territory. Lochner taking the silver, Meyer the bronze ahead of Cripps, Hall and Melbardis. World Cup win number 49 in Francesco Friedrich's illustrious career. He's our points leader with 1 race left to go. A first for the Women's Monobob World Series, racing under lights on Saturday evening. Königssee, Bavaria for the Women's Monobob World Series race on a snowy Saturday evening. After the first of the 2 heats, Canada's Melissa Lochtholz lied enmeshed in a 3-way tie for 8th. One of 7 sleds covered by just 0.08 of a second. British slider Misha McNeil had the lead as Lochtholz began her run, but didn't as the Canadian finished a much tidier second heat. And Lochtholz would be in the lead for another few sleds. Kim Kalicki and Nadezhda Sergeva both falling by the wayside after random second heats. 5th after the first heat, Kim Uran of Korea. She'd had a strong run to be within 1,500ths of the silver medal. She went behind early on, starting much slower than her Canadian rival, nearly 0.3 given away at the start, but she fought back to take a slender lead at the line. And Uran was still leading after Martina Fonteneve of Switzerland had gone, and we got to our final 3. Alana Myers-Taylor, second fastest of the starters, and another neat-looking drive from the American veteran who enjoys this Königssee track. She managed to hang on to take the lead of the race with 2 to go. Only 300s faster than Myers-Taylor after the first heat was Germany's Stephanie Schneider. The former brakewoman had a good run going in the second heat as well, but the slender advantage out of the Kreisel skidded away from under her, and she slipped a spot behind Myers-Taylor with 1 sled remaining. Like Myers-Taylor and Schneider, Kaylee Humphries has only had 1 race in these new generation monobobs. That was a week earlier in St. Moritz where she won. She led the first heat by 0.3 of a second and made few mistakes in the second run. Learning fast is what she does after 14 seasons of driving bobsleighs, and she romped away to win by 0.62 of a second. Schneider and Myers-Taylor completing the podium behind our 2-time winner Kaylee Humphries, the American, on top again. Sunday dawned like Saturday, overcast and with light snow in the air as the action began with the Königssee, the four-man bobsleigh. Mistake in the first heat left Justin Cripps half a second out of the lead, and that meant the struggle for medals would be a little too much. Last year's bronze medalist tidied up his act in the second heat to put current leader Oskars Melbardis behind him and guarantee himself a top 5 finish. Fourth place after the first heat, local hero Johannes Lochner, world champion on this track in 2017, winner here in 2019. Last year's bronze medalist was only fourth, and that meant he'd have to produce something special on home ice. This year, driving the FES sled rather than his familiar Valna, he had a great second heat. Was it enough for a medal, though? Third place after the first of the 2 runs was Austria's Benny Meyer. He started the 4-man season with bronze, silver last week in St. Moritz, and was looking to guarantee himself a 3rd straight medal. With the lead into the lower labyrinth, that was job done. A 3rd medal of the season for the Austrians guaranteed. Christoph Hafer had just been 200s ahead of Benny Meyer after the first of the 2 heats, and the German lay in the silver medal position. He's had 1 World Cup medal in his career before in Sigulda, Latvia, but his relative inexperience in 4-man saw him slip behind both Meyer and Lochner. The Austrians guaranteed a silver, Lochner at least a bronze. And it was unlikely to improve because Francesco Friedrich has not been in the habit of making many mistakes. A handy lead off the fastest start in the first and the second heats. He drove away from his opposition to claim his 50th career win, his 14th in 4-man, and his 2nd World Cup win in a row here at the track he likes least of all. Benny Meyer took the silver, hometown hero Johannes Lochner took the bronze. Lochner in 4th in the World Cup. Friedrich continues to lead it. And the final action of the weekend, women's bobsleigh. World Cup points leader Katrin Beil lay in 6th position after the first of the 2 heats, slightly disappointed with being over a third of a second away from the lead, but a good second run would give her a chance of moving up the order and trying to cling on to the lead in the standings. Beil was still in the leader's box as Olympic champion Kaylee Humphries came and went without improving her position, leaving Christine de Bruyn next up. De Bruyn of Canada in 4th place, a relatively new BTC sled underneath her. She had a good top half of the track and just had enough left despite a rocky ride through the labyrinth to hang on by a 100th. 3 sleds to go and the return to World Cup action of Germany's Kim Kilicki and Ann-Kristen Strack. 3rd place after the first heat within a 10th of the leader. She's had 7 World Cup races up until now, has been silver or bronze in all of them, but this was different. She laid down a smoking second heat to take a huge lead, and that was a big challenge for the remaining 2 sleds. Alana Myers-Taylor, last time a winner on this track in the World Championships in 2017, but she has been a regular podium finisher. 500s in front, out onto the bend away, the speed just disappeared, and Myers-Taylor slipped into 2nd spot. Guaranteed a medal, but not a win. The final sled was Stephanie Schneider of Germany. The first heat leader, she had a 10th of a second in hand over Kilicki as she sat down, but her run from the first heat couldn't be repeated. She too had troubles on the bend away, the speed going away. She would drop into silver medal position. Kim Kilicki claiming her first career win in only her 8th World Cup. And she is now 2nd in the battle for the Crystal Globe behind Katty Beil. So whoever finishes in front in Innsbruck will take the season title. It's Beil versus Kilicki, and right now Kilicki is on a roll, but Katty will be at home. The final World Cup stop will be back at Innsbruck in Austria, replacing the cancelled race in Beijing before they head to the World Championships in Altenburg.